Welcome everyone to the Game Vault Podcast. I'm your host Tom Schuster. Joining me tonight are Mark Myers and Jonathon McHugh. Tonight we'll be discussing speedrunning, AGDQ, and its effect on retro gaming. And we'll be reviewing our Retro Roulette game Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 2. Before we get to all that, what have you guys been playing? Jonathon, why don't you tell us about your Android exploits?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I was listening to a podcast, and somebody mentioned was explaining that they'd been using Steam Link or maybe PlayStation Remote Play, one of the two things. Anyways, so you can, Steam Link is where you can stream a game from your computer to your phone or tablet. And let me back up. On this podcast, I previously said streaming games is bad. I would never do it. The thing is, then I was talking about streaming games over the internet, which I still stand by what I said. However, with Steam Link, you are streaming from a computer on your local network, on your Wi-Fi network, to another device on your Wi-Fi network. And so that has nothing to do with your ISP. It's so much faster than the internet. You can absolutely get at least 1080p resolution, 60 frames per second, no problem. So it's fantastic because I've been wanting to play PC games, but not at my desk where my desktop PC is set up. And so this would let me lay on the couch and play stuff. The problem is I just told you that you can get 1080p, 60 frames per second, no problem. That is true if you are on a 5 gigahertz network. My tablet was cost about $50, and so it does not support 5 gigahertz networks. Yeah. So it is literally unplayable. I was still using it. It was Tom, I think you were mentioning that this is especially good for RPGs and other things that are not you don't have to react quickly. Because even if you're getting terrible frame rate and stuff like that, and it occasionally drops out, if you're doing a turn-based RPG or something like that where you don't have to respond quickly, it doesn't really matter. And the convenience is still kind of worth the slight hassle of that. So I found out that this doesn't actually work on my tablet after I bought a controller for my tablet.
That's always how it goes, right?
Yeah, and so I was aware this was a risk, but I was fine with it because the other thing is that I realized my tablet can emulate games just fine. And I haven't looked into using any emulators on a phone or a tablet before because the touchscreen controls are awful. But if you got a controller, then that's not a problem. So this is all to say, I started looking into emulating PSP and DS games on my tablet because I already mentioned it's low powered, and so that's about what I can do. And also, I think the Game Boy Advance is probably the console that I've played most in my as a child. However, when the DS came out, I was like, that seems dumb. I don't want 2 screens. Can you just give me a better Game Boy? Yes. And so I never got into that. And then I did have a PSP. However, the thing about the PSP is that it is very uncomfortable. It hurts to use it for more than half hour to an hour.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I also never played many of those games. So first thing I want to talk about with this is, so I was looking into the PSP and the history of it. And then also looking into the Vita a little bit. And it seems like Sony's philosophy or idea was, what if we made a handheld console where you could play PS2 games? And so the PSP and Vita are way more powerful than the DS and 3DS. And also the games are a lot bigger because they have full cutscenes and stuff like that. But neither of those devices were very popular. Then in 2017, 2 years after the Vita came out, Nintendo's like, hey, what if we made a handheld console where you could play PS2 games? And everybody was like, holy shit, this is such a good idea. So that's my opinion of the Switch. That's been my opinion of the Switch for a while. Anyways, DS and PSP games that I tried out. So I asked all of you for recommendations. You suggested Crisis Core. I tried that, but it wouldn't boot up on my. I couldn't get the ROM to run. Okay. So whatever. Then I was going to try. I also booted up Peace Walker, but that tutorial is very slow. And I told you that my tablet can emulate PSP games. That is a lie. It can. That is really pushing it. If I turn the sound off and it's not a particularly intensive game, then it will run fine. But that's kind of a lot of caveats.
PSP has been notoriously difficult to run on anything, really. For whatever reason, PSP is way harder to emulate than a PS2 for some reason.
Interesting. I wonder if it's the BIOS stuff, same as every other PlayStation console.
Probably. I'm sure it is.
That if you have the BIOS, it's great. If you don't, then it's garbage, and you can't distribute the BIOS. So PSP. So I didn't really play Peace Walker. There are 2 games that I played, and these are... This is me being on my bullshit. The 2 games that I have actually tried to play on there are God Eater 2, which I know I already told you the story, but I still think it's really funny. So God Eater 2 never came out in the or only came out in Japan. But a couple months ago, people released a fan translation of it so that you can play it with English subtitles and whatever. The thing is that translation is very bad. So the whole premise of that game is that the special abilities are called blood arts. However, the person who translated the game translated blood as Brad. So all of the NPCs are telling me how I have the power of Brad. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Oh, okay. I see. Not a person.
You have the power of Bro Brad.
Yeah. But the thing is, I already own God Eater 2 for the PlayStation 4, and so I can just play this through remote play. This game is not good. It's a monster hunting game, so you can think of it kind of like a more anime version of Monster Hunter. However,
more anime than Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I know. So the God Eater 3 is a good action game. However, before that, it's just the combat is clunky and not super interesting. However, the story is pretty good and the characters are fun and stuff like that. So you're really just playing it for that. So I am planning to use PlayStation's Remote Play to play that. The other thing that I played is Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, which is the latest Monster Hunter game that came out on the PSP.
Okay.
This one will mostly run on my tablet, so I can actually play it. Also, I was expecting to really hate this game because I like Monster Hunter World a lot because of how complex the combat is and stuff. So have either of you played Monster Hunter World?
I've dabbled. I haven't really given it enough time.
I have not, but I know people that have, so I kind of have seen it played.
Yeah, so then both of you are familiar with the thing in Monster Hunter World where the game does not teach you how any of the weapons work, and it's all very complicated, so you need to watch a 20-minute video to learn what your combos are.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is new in the game before World, in Monster Hunter Generations, which was for the 3DS.
Yeah.
That's the first time where they had actual complex combos for you to learn. Before that, you have a light attack and a heavy attack, basically, and that's it. And you can do them multiple times in a row, and so that makes it a combo. And instead of being about this complex action combat, the earlier Monster Hunter games are really just about more survival mechanic stuff. Did you bring enough food with you for this hunt? Are you running away so you can heal up? You have to throw a paintball at the monster in order to track them on your map.
Yeah,
stuff
I remember
like
that stuff.
Yeah. So Freedom Unite is more like that, which means that it's not as intense as Monster Hunter World is. Instead, it's just a chill out game where you just sit in this, walk around in this town that's cool, and then occasionally go out to like hunt small monsters and stuff like that. So I think I might play more of that in the future because that's an interesting thing.
I wonder if that's just because of the fact that they expect World maybe being more co-op than that game on the PSP is why it, isn't as intense or something.
I think it's just a change in what they wanted the Monster Hunter series to be. Because Freedom Unite would have come out in like 2009 or something, 2009 or 2010. And it itself was a remake of Monster Hunter 2 on the PlayStation 2. So in the time since that game came out, you had a lot of other stuff that's going to be more of that, like just hang out, do crafting stuff, things like the Atelier games. And so people who want that probably would have moved to something else. And so I think that's probably when Monster Hunter became more complex.
I think it's probably also the classic thing of if you don't have the manual, you don't know what you're doing thing. I feel like even some newer games still from time to time will give you that issue. Like if you don't own a manual, it tells you everything in the manual if you choose to read it.
So Monster Hunter World has a good in-game tutorial, like a good in-game manual. However, like it literally does not tell you all of your attacks. Like for Charge Bladed, you have 3 different buff moves that give you temporary buffs, and it does not tell you about 2 of them. Like just literally does not mention them anywhere. And if you try to play that weapon without using those buffs, you're going to have a horrible time. So I think it's more like the Dark Souls thing where they're intentionally, well, not necessarily intentionally, but they make it poorly tutorialized in order to encourage you to like go online and read reviews and read like fan guides and stuff like that, and for people to collaborate to figure out like best ways to play the game and stuff.
I mean, Monster Hunter World's built for co-op, right? So
yes,
that's kind of, I guess it makes sense that they would do that.
And also it's more the Dark Souls thing is it's a way they probably think of making people play the game more than once, or not wanting to, if they give it everything up front, somebody beats it once, basically gets all they want out of it and don't have to worry about it, and the community doesn't build with that. So maybe it's a little bit of that from their end. I'm not sure. I don't dive deep enough into the communities playing the games to know exactly what they're going for, but it does seem like a thing when they don't have a good tutorial, it's because they want you to explore and find some things out on your own.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, another piece is probably just that in World, each individual weapon is so complex and different from each other that it's not feasible to teach somebody all of it in a single tutorial. It really helps to have them for you to watch videos and other people playing to see how they chain attacks together and stuff like that. Anyways, the other thing I've been getting back into recently is Monster Hunter World, because the demo for Monster Hunter Rise came out, which is the next one. It's a Switch exclusive temporarily.
You sound
Monster Hunter Rise is extremely good. What was that?
I said you sound disappointed.
No,
it's a Switch exclusive.
No, it's a Switch exclusive. That is how I want to play that game. That is part of why I have been trying to set up this whole tablet thing, is because I had a lot of fun playing Monster Hunter Rise on my Switch. And so I was like, what if I could play Monster Hunter World on my tablet? So Monster Hunter Rise is really good. It's a Switch exclusive. The reason I was hesitating is because in the Capcom hack, there was a number of things that indicated it's going to be getting a PC port probably in 6 months to a year.
That'd be a good idea.
So getting back into Monster Hunter World, I have hundreds of hours in this game, and it's a lot of fun to do, to just have an engaging action game and stuff like that. All of the weapons just feel so great that you don't even need to, I don't even care about making progress and getting better gear and stuff like that. I just want an excuse to get a swing around the switch axe and do the morph slash. And then if I can keep going, I'm also about to finish Tales of Berseria.
Okay. I was going to ask you how far you are, so
Yeah.
because I'm going to talk about it too.
Yeah. So Tales of Berseria is, Tales of Vesperia is the most popular game in this series. I played it in like 2010 or something, so in high school or whatever, when I was really into RPGs, and I bounced off of it. I just didn't really like it. I didn't really, I wasn't invested in the characters. The story didn't really grab me. It was just like a very generic JRPG story. But people really, really like that game. And like I said, say that it's the best in the series. That's a pretty common opinion. So I was thinking about trying this series, just a different game. And then I was looking through them. I saw Tales of Berseria, which came out in like 2017. So instead of this game is the pitch is that it's like an inversion of the normal JRPG structure. Instead of being a like young teenage boy who is the chosen one and on a quest to save the world, instead you're a 19-year-old demon woman who's on a quest to kill the man who saved the world. And and all your teammates are things like there's a pirate, and I think you've got one or two demon companions, a witch con artist, and you get the idea.
Yeah.
Generally not good people. So I'm really liking this game. I think it's fantastic writing. It is like exactly a very by the numbers JRPG, like in the way that it's structured and in the way that the writing is. Just that like I said, it's this flavor that it's like a mirror version of that. That you're playing evil people instead of good people. Yeah. And that I really like these characters. Mark, I think we both agreed that Maki Lu seems like the most fun.
Oh yeah, the instant she became more into the game is when I started to get hooked on it. I love the Magicazam or whatever, mm-hmm. And then the photo changes to like her whole body doing a point.
Yeah,
it's made me laugh every time it comes because it's just real dumb.
Yeah,
and I just had a right before here I had one of those interstitials. I haven't beaten it yet. I just wanted to talk about this interstitial. And I wanted to make sure where you were at with the game. It's this moment where Eleanor is, talking about sewing up Velvet's clothing and all. Yeah. And in the background, they have like the characters sort of come through because they're listening to her, and she's oblivious to it. And mm-hmm. Maggie loses the best because she comes through like curious, and then as she passes Eleanor and comes to the other side, she's like annoyed and upset with her, the face, and it's just that character is just written so well in that game so far. At least it's just she's and Velvet just not taking any of her shit, and it's just great. I don't know if you had anything else.
The one negative thing about this game is that it is too horny. The character designs are too horny. The main character's outfit, like for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. She's got like a tattered black cape that billows behind her. This is the demon woman. And then like her whole color scheme is red and black and stuff. It's great, except for the fact that like she doesn't wear a shirt. Like just the middle of her shirt is missing. And I was hoping that there would be like an alternate outfit where she would be wearing a shirt. But no. So I ended up buying one of the DLC packs just so I could make her put clothes on.
I wore the villager opening scene thing so far throughout the whole game for her. I didn't know there was a DLC that might be better. I'll look it up.
Yeah, I bought the Pirate Pack DLC, which has an alternate outfit for her, which is like a pirate outfit that is like red and white. I think it's like a white blouse with a red coat, and so it's a similar aesthetic to the main outfit, just not as ridiculous.
Yeah. And not as many
and
builds. It
looks like the other option is that if you do the serving minigame, if you beat the first 3 rounds of the serving minigame as her, then you get like a waitress outfit.
Yeah.
Like black pants and a white shirt. And that looks like, that also seems like a fun way to play the game, to have her complaining about all these rich people while she's dressed as a waitress.
Yeah, I have Lavallette in a waiter outfit.
Nice.
So my thing that I hate the most about this game, and not even the game itself, is the fact that I can't take screenshots of it. Because I tried every time it says cannot take screenshot now.
Oh,
and
because
all
you're
that
playing on
stuff.
PlayStation 4.
Yeah, I'm playing on PS4. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you can't take a screenshot on a PC since when?
No. I play on PS4. So I should have mentioned because I've got them dressed up so ridiculously, and it makes me laugh. And I go and hit the button to screenshot, and it pops up, and it disappoints me every time because I have the other demon guy. I have him with the giant Norman head
Nice.
on
Rokurou.
and his normal outfit and just the head. So he's like in the background of all the cutscenes with the giant head on, which is great. But yeah, game's been fun. I don't want to cut into your time before we jump over. So if you had anything else,
Nope. That's all I had to say.
okay. All right,
Mark,
so
how about you jumping off of that?
yeah, so that's what I've been mostly playing. Jonathan texted me because he had and maybe the way I presented it had thought that I'd already beaten Berseria. So when he started talking about it and his feelings on it in a chat, I was just like, all right, let me give this a shot. I went back in. You said something about around 10 hours. It was where the combat became good. And I checked my time and I was like at 8-9 hours. So I was like, all right, let me just at least get through this 10-hour threshold and let's see. And then as soon as I clicked over, I got a big story point and beat in the next couple hours. And then I was just, because I had bounced off of it, where I didn't have the desire to keep going with it, which is my experience with Vesperia and Zillia and, those games, is that I would just play them through. Like I didn't have any chance. Every time I got the chance I wanted to play it, this was different. And I don't know why. I would like to know what I was thinking back last year when I bought it on sale, that I didn't keep playing it, because I'm really enjoying it so far. The way the characters are written, you can kind of, as Jonathan said, you can see where a lot of the generic RPG writing, if you played enough of them, you can kind of see where some storylines are going to go. I hope there's twists to them, but I'm like, all right, I can see what they're going to do with this character. I don't know what the final end game would be or what the final story, but I got it. But the characters themselves and the writing are real good. Just from the sheer fact that they all seem to have, their own personality and lane, that when they pop up on screen, I kind of know what's going to happen. It's not like they all become a amorphous blob of people in a story where you can't tell one apart from the other, in terms of a situation. I think the best part of the combat so far, I'm playing on normal. I don't know if I should be on hard, but in these games, I really don't care because it's more the story I'm playing for.
I would recommend bumping it up to moderate.
Okay.
There's actually a lot more difficulties than just easy, normal, and hard.
Okay.
They don't tell you that, and there's no reason you would think that because the default difficulty is called normal.
Yeah.
If you bump it up to moderate, you get a few more like modifiers and stuff that like make it more interesting.
Okay, I'll do that then, because the combat's been fairly simple and easy. I haven't had to heal in 6 hours while in combat.
Yes, agreed.
So I've been having fun with that. I go through and loot everything. The cats thing is ridiculous. And then I found out that those respawn, so I'm like, oh, so I'll never not have the chance to get any of those chests. The mini games have been fun. I think what I like best about this, and I think Jonathan hit on it, is just the reverse aspect of the story is interesting. Because I'm one of those that probably likes Vesperia the best out of the ones I've played. I haven't played them all, but Zillia was good, but it didn't stick with me. Maybe it's because you run around with a dog as a companion, fighting partner in Vesperia, that just stuck with me. But yeah, I'm interested to get done. I think I'm sort of at the midway or 2/3 point or something of the game. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm glad that he's here on this episode, but glad that I got back into the game. It gave me something to play after going through 68 to 70 plus hours of Cyberpunk while I waited on Hitman coming out. The only other thing I played, I bought a few newer songs for Fuser, so that's been fun messing around with those. I have, played my normal sports games when I just don't want to think about anything. And then outside of playing the games with Jen, it was nice to get back into our Retro Roulette game that we'll talk about, because I finally got to play it on the third system I own it for. And and to be honest, I don't know how much of an upgrade. Maybe I just got to go back to the PS3 one, but I didn't see much difference from when I played the PS3 remaster than the PS4 one. There probably is a difference, but I haven't played the other one in years. So,
Yeah.
But it was fun getting back into that. I get right to the spot that's easy to get to, which is, getting to the end of Luca. And so that's all I've been playing. I have, we got Hitman coming out, and then, that's probably what I'll talk about next week.
That's good.
Or next episode, I should say, not next week.
I hope that you guys will stream some Hitman.
Oh,
That seems fun to watch.
Yeah, I have thoughts on it. I want to play through it. I want to see the maps first.
Luckily with Hitman, you could play through the same level 100 times and do it different every time. So,
yep.
I think that's a good call.
Yeah, and I also had to. I may end up buying it on two things because I bought it on Xbox because I have the other two games, so it'll let me import the levels. But right now I can't really stream Xbox. So I may end up just getting 3 on PC if it goes on some kind of sale. And then we'll start streaming it once I get comfortable with it. So
awesome. Yeah, just make sure it's not like cross-play with Xbox or what's the word I'm looking?
Cross-save.
Windows Store.
Cross-save, yeah. Yeah, because some games are, but yeah, just make sure that it's not before you go and buy it again.
Yeah, if I can, I'll check it. But, the only reason was because IO said that you had to have owned the games. And then the piece, Hitman 2 didn't come out on Epic, which is where it's exclusive on PC for right now.
Oh, okay.
Or I think it's exclusive there because I couldn't find it on Steam. It might be Microsoft Store and Epic, sort of thing. But yeah, they don't have Hitman 2, so all the people are like, "What do you mean?"
I did hear that you can do the import your save from the Steam version of Hitman 2 to the Epic version of Hitman 3 and stuff like that. But it's still weird.
Yeah, it's completely weird that they didn't ever secure Hitman 2 knowing they had this.
PC gaming has gotten weird over the past few years with all these different storefronts opening up.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. So Tom, what are we playing?
All right. So I got fed up with Cyberpunk and new games, and I said I'm gonna start a playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 1 because why not?
Yes, best Kingdom Hearts game.
I bought the story so far for the PS4 last year or 2 years ago, whenever, right before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, because it had the 2.8 prologue and all that other stuff. So I wanted to play that, but I hadn't loaded up the original game or anything on the PS4. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot and see how it looks and plays. And now I'm 10 hours in already. It's amazing how good that game is. I can't describe just how good it feels to go back to that game. Because just playing Cyberpunk and have it being broken and just not playing well and going back to an old game that works perfectly and I know what's going to happen. It's I saw something the other day. People with anxiety will continually watch the same TV shows over and over because they know what's going to happen and it feels safe. And I feel like I kind of have that with video games. Is I will do that, and I will go back to games that I've played and know very well a lot. Obviously, I played Final Fantasy VII over and over and over, and now I'm playing Kingdom Hearts for the 4th time. So I think it may be a little bit of that. Could be a little bit of nostalgia, but playing on the PS4 where it looks incredible. It's 4K, 60 FPS, so it looks great, and there's just things about that game that other games don't have. The music in Kingdom Hearts is amazing. I could just go to Traverse Town and let it loop on repeat forever if I really if I wanted to. But yeah, I've gone through the first 4 worlds already. I just went to Agrabah last night, and I don't know. I've just been really enjoying it. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, if that makes any sense, because of all the crappy games that have come out, broken games that have come out.
Because they've had years to perfect that game.
No, I know. Also, as I've been going back through and playing it, I've been going, man, Kingdom Hearts used to be a lot more straightforward than it is now.
So I have thoughts about this. But finish your thought.
But yeah, so I was gonna say, they tell you what's going to happen, like what things do, and they do it. There's no like overarching weirdness that's happening that you have to pay attention to little things going on over here, little things going on over. I'm sure there's things later that will pop into other games, but like it seems way more straightforward of a story in this one. Save the princesses so they can't open the door. That's the story. But
Yeah.
it gets way more convoluted and weird as you go on.
Yeah. I agree with that. That's part of why Kingdom Hearts 1 is my favorite game, is because all of the other games have a problem with the story not making any sense. And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that Kingdom Hearts 1 is like a complete story in and of itself. Like you get to the end and then Kingdom Hearts is light and you're like, yep, that's the whole thing. Fantastic. And then I think they have some interesting ideas that they add with the nobodies in Kingdom Hearts 2, but then they want to just keep adding new stuff. And that means that you have to change other things so that Kingdom Hearts 1 was not a complete story. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. It kind of seemed like Kingdom Hearts was an experiment, and they were like, all right, well, we don't know if this is going to work and people are going to like it. So let's just encapsulate this first game with maybe some things that we could expand on later. And then they decided to go apeshit on the expanding on stuff because why not? It's a Square game. We're going to do whatever we can to make it be convoluted after the fact.
I mean, I guess another thing is that when Kingdom Hearts came out, there had not been any sequels to Final Fantasy games, right?
No, because 10 had just come out as well. So it kind of plays to Final Fantasy 10 as well, because they came out around the same time. They were developed around the same time. So there were no direct sequels to Final Fantasy games at the time. And I guess Kingdom Hearts wasn't even thought of as a series at that point either.
Yeah, that might be part of why it's in this situation, because at that point, Square made a single game and then they moved on and made a new world. They didn't ever do sequels, and so I feel like they probably didn't think, is Kingdom Hearts setting up for another game? But then this is the time when they started saying we should start doing sequels, because Crisis Core also would have been shortly after this, right? Like Advent Children, Crisis Core, and all that stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So that was kind of it was that, and then they also did the Vincent game,
Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah. So they kind of did sequels, but they weren't 100% a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were no direct sequels.
Right. There was no direct sequels. There were spin-offs, if anything. But yeah, they definitely decided, hey, we're making all this money on this one franchise. Let's make more of them. And then I think that's where everything took a nosedive.
Yeah. I wonder how much it was Disney that
I
wanted it to be a series.
I doubt it was Disney's decision. Because I feel like they're really just licensing those characters more than anything.
So I have a theory, and I have not done any research to investigate if this is true. But
so it is true. Got it.
Right. So it's 100% true. Take it as fact.
In my brain.
So you heard it here first.
My theory is that the reason Disney wanted to do Kingdom Hearts is to sell existing Disney properties to an Asian audience. That this is they get a developer that's makes a popular franchise in Asia, not just Japan, and then they give them all these Disney characters so that they will make a game with all these Disney characters, and then people will play that and say, man, I want to know more about these characters, and then they can do marketing off the back of that.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that sounds like Disney.
Yeah.
Being like, here, do this thing so we make more money. Who cares if the game's any good? We just want people in Asia to see these characters.
Yeah. I was going to say something else. We're going to talk about this more when we get to the Final Fantasy X, I think. But I think another reason for this is probably because of JRPGs on the PS2 being so much more expensive to make, because of having voice acting and more detailed assets and stuff like that they probably decided that they need to start reusing some of those assets and stuff so that they can reusing assets and engines so that they are having a better return for how much they're making for the first individual game. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's also funny because you look at the game and there are Final Fantasy X characters in the game, but the Final Fantasy X characters are kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like they didn't want to make them main characters because they were new characters, which I thought was an interesting thing. Because if you look, every other Final Fantasy character that's in there, minus Selphie, is an adult and is part of the main story. And I just thought that was interesting that they decided to throw Tidus and Waka into Kingdom Hearts 1 as they were developing both games. Like people, when I first played Kingdom Hearts, I had no idea who they were because I didn't play Final Fantasy X, so I didn't know who these characters were. I just thought they were made up for this game because I know who Squall is, and I know who Cloud is, and I know who Aerith and Yuffie and all those other characters, which is. It's also interesting that Final Fantasy VII has the most characters in the game. I don't know that of any other Final Fantasies that have more characters in there.
I mean, Yuffie and Aerith are not really in that game. Like, it does not matter that they are.
Right.
Aerith
they don't drive the story, but they're in the game.
Sure. Yeah. They have a cameo.
Right. They have a pretty large cameo in the beginning of the game. Once you get past Traverse Town, you pretty much don't see them anymore. But they show up in Kingdom Hearts 2 also. So, I don't know.
And I would imagine that's because 8 and 9, which it's criminal that 9 didn't get this, but didn't have any characters that people remember as much.
Yeah,
they only remember
Phoebe.
Squall because, he has, the Gunblade.
The Gunblade.
And Phoebe's just what the original Black Mage looked like from 9. So
I think the Gunblade made more of a cameo than Squall did.
Squall actually matters. I think Squall and Cloud are the only Final Fantasy characters that actually matter in Kingdom Hearts.
Sid kind of does, but
sure,
that's for other reasons.
Right, but what I was talking about with Yuffie and Aerith is just that if you just replace those with random NPCs, just like random humans in Traverse Town, it would not affect the story in any way. It does not matter that they are Yuffie and Aerith. That does not change the way that they speak in any way.
Right. I think they actually wrote Yuffie's character originally to be Riku from 10.
Oh, sure.
But they decided to replace her with Yuffie. I don't remember why, but there was a reason for that. But you can tell by what Yuffie's wearing, because it's not like her normal character costume. It more resembles Riku's costume than hers. But they decided to throw Riku into Kingdom Hearts 2, so she's there eventually. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing, and I'm surprised at how quickly I've gotten through all of that first stuff, which kind of leads us into our main topic we're going to talk about, and that's speedrunning.
Yeah.
So Mark kind of has gotten me back into watching speedruns and stuff. And Jonathan also enjoys a speedrunner too. And a lot of the speedruns that I watch are from the Games Done Quick series that they stream on Twitch, and they also post all their stuff to YouTube. It's a really interesting thing to speedrunning because it's really getting an old game or any game really to do something it's not supposed to get it to where to get through it the fastest. And I think that's just a really cool, interesting thing that folks have discovered over the years. Just because it kind of progressed from, I feel like, the Nintendo World Championship type stuff to how can we beat this game as fast as possible. But what kind of speedruns do you guys like watching and diving into?
Yeah, so I'll start off. I probably have a different criteria in terms of speed runs. I usually put the playlist on in the background, of an event if I don't catch them all live, the ones I want to see, and just let it sort of run in the background while I'm doing other things. And usually my favorite part is when there's a good runner and a good, well, not this year, but, a good couch behind them. It's one of the reasons I got into watching a lot of the Link to the Past speedruns and all, because the people they put forward for those communities are just entertaining to watch, like or even listen to, because it doesn't seem like someone that sort of just likes to play the games without needing to talk or be on camera, trying to do it on camera with like dozens of people behind them. So they don't have the charisma, sort of to carry that. So those are the ones I like. And then I fluctuate between, I love the really quick ones that beat games in like under a half hour or so. Or I like the really stupid things you can do with some RPGs to beat them in like 4 to 9 hours of games that should take 50, 60 hours. Those both are fun to watch. I missed that this year they didn't have a end of the AGDQ like 7-hour RPG run. They usually end it or do one of the last nights. Just because I guess being everything over Zoom and stuff like that, and Discord and stuff like that, it'd be hard for somebody to just sit around for 6 hours, 7 hours, in their home when they're not playing the game, being the people on the couch. But there's some interesting speed runs this year that sort of mixed all of my love of short and semi-long ones. But yeah, that's sort of where I come from. As long as the people playing it can talk and sort of be interesting and not just have long periods of silence in it, I find that's usually a speed run that I'll either go back to or play in the background while doing other things computer.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys have more.
No, I agree that to watch a good speed run, you need to have a good couch or a good co-host like they had for this year. Just because most of the time the speedrunner can't really pay attention to chat and other things when they're doing a speed run. So having a good person to explain what's happening definitely enhances that speed run. How about you, Jonathan?
I guess I want to start by saying the opposite of what you just said. Most of the Twitch streamers that I watch, like when I'm just watching Twitch, are speedrunners or no-hit runners or something like that. The reason that I like watching because specifically I watch Souls speedrunners, and because they have played that game, those games so much, and they have so much of it down, that they are still able to pay attention to chat. However, I find that they tend to be a lot less annoying than like big mainstream Twitch streamers. Like, people are not there because this person is ridiculous. They're there because this person is really good at playing this game, and often has like good insights into games. Specifically, the Twitch streamer that I watch the most is Distortion 2, who has had multiple Dark Souls world records, at least at one point, and he's been the one to find a lot of glitches. I don't know how many world records he has right now, but he'll also play a large variety of other games. And so it's very interesting to like get his perspective on things like out. And so it's interesting to see what his perspective is on that game after he's played it, like 20 times, trying to get a decent record before he moves on because he absolutely hates that game and never wants to touch it again. Stuff like that. And so but I did want to mention that one thing that makes GDQ so good is that they have the couch there to explain the speedrun to people who haven't seen it before. If you just watch if you just look up world record speedrun for whatever game, the person is not going to explain literally anything that they do. They're just going to be like, all right, let's see if I can finally get this skip. Oh, yep, there it is. I'm through the wall. And you're like, how? What?
Right.
What are you doing? But with GDQ, they like actually walk you through what the skips are, how they work, why the game functions that way, stuff like that. So it's so good to learn about a game that you aren't that familiar with, or at least aren't familiar with the speedruns of.
I guess I definitely agree with that, because I've watched numerous speedruns where they're like, all right, let me see if I can get this skip, and I'm through. And they don't like you don't have any idea what just happened. You just saw them go through the wall.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh yeah, I did this to get through the wall. There's no explanation, which is why I like to have a good couch. Which is, I've watched like an idiot. I've watched the full speed runs of Final Fantasy VII, which takes like 8 hours. And I cannot imagine being the people in the room watching that, because I get like antsy just sitting at home watching it. I can't even imagine sitting in like a theater style room on a couch trying to explain every in and out and every like the step count and all this other stuff to people who have never watched a speed run in their whole life.
Yeah. I think that's my main thing. Jonathan hit the nail on the head for part of what I was saying, is just having the people explain the things, make it more watchable to me. I follow some streamers too, and I'll just pop in, and they're more for games that I already know this stuff, so I don't need the explanation. It's just, I like to get, especially Link to the Past is probably the big one, learning some of the bomb jumps and all that I'm learning to make my randomizers go a little faster. And, learning dark rooms and stuff like that is watching, people like Andy or I forget the name of the other one. In usually the races are a good way of sort of picking things up of, a game well and don't need the couch to explain. But for things like, you're watching through like some of these really short ones, like I'm going through the list right now, like games you haven't heard of. Like there was a game, Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Oh, I loved that game.
That speedrun. And the guy was so great because like explaining that in the end game with the final boss, you can go and sort of, you get, I think, the bad ending or whatever by doing it. But you go in, and if you squat and hit A just in time, you grab it before it becomes like blocked off by an invisible wall, and you don't even have to fight the final boss to win that game. And just that whole speed run of a game I've never seen before. That was a good example of it. And then a lot of the races are fun, and I just think it's a good way for two things. It'll let you see a game that you'll probably never play on your own, through there, because there's so many games, and small, big ones, really old ones. Like they do the Awful Block, which is always fun to watch, where they play just really terrible games and beat them as quickly as possible. And then, it's a good way to just show that, a game can be more than just, beat it once, put it down, never look at it again. That, there is a part of it that if you really love a game, there is a new way to, get into it, whether it's watching these or trying to do it yourself. By what you're watching. I think that's what Games Done Quick does in just the physical sense of the game itself and playing it on there. I'm sure the next thing we'll talk about is the amazing money they raise for, doing this stuff for multiple charities is great. But, I would have never got into randomizers or playing Link to the Past more than just the regular vanilla way if I didn't, catch an AGDQ of they did a speed run of a randomizer. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it's also got me to play some games, like just to see how terrible they are. And just I don't know about you guys, but I've found out and probably played more older games by watching this than I would have before, and also learning how broken some long RPGs are. That's
something I wanted to touch on, is just how broken a lot of games are.
Yeah, so I'll let you touch on that with your thoughts, but it's just fun to see. The only thing I'll say, I'll go into dislike real fast. The only thing I dislike is some of the games where they can like beat it in under like 5 minutes for a long game that would be more fun to watch, like a Zelda or something like that, like an Ocarina of Time, where they do like memory warping and they can warp right to the end by hitting this certain thing at a certain point and all that. Those I'm like,
Ocarina of Time is an exception. That's very unusual.
Yeah.
There's another super unusual one that I loved that they show every once in a while. It's the Pokemon. It's either red or yellow. They beat it in 0.00 seconds because the game is so broken that they can menu everything before the game starts, and then they can hit start and be at the end of the game immediately. It's those kind of things are fun to watch, just to see how they get get that to happen, but at the same time, it's like, all right, just play. I want to see somebody actually have skill and play the game, but that's funny stuff to watch when you're just looking for something random to see.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was going to say, you were saying wanting to just see somebody be good at the game. Usually looking up speedruns is a good way to do that, of like find somebody who's good at the game, because they usually have to play at least some amount. And they're usually like under-leveled or whatever, don't have required weapons, and so they have to be especially good. But the other thing is that stuff that's very similar to speedrunning, like no-hit runs, playing through an entire game without ever getting hit by an enemy and stuff like that, are also usually a good way to see stuff like that, because they just have to be like really good at the game in order to do that. But I interrupted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on some of the lengthy RPGs that are just broken. One being my favorite game, Final Fantasy VII. You can, if you watch the PC run of Final Fantasy VII, any percent, it's about 2 hours long because of how broken the game is.
Yeah.
Basically, they get through Midgar and they get to the world map, and they broke it so bad that they can get to the end of the game in like literally 5 minutes. Like it's Midgar plus 5 minutes, because they can do something to break the game so bad they can get it, because there's in Final Fantasy VII there's still a debug room, because they never took it out of fear of it breaking the game if they took it out.
Okay.
So they figured out in the PC version how to warp to the debug room in under 10 minutes and then beat Sephiroth without actually having to fight him. Like it just takes you to the part where spoilers for a 30-year-old game almost at this point, where you fight Sephiroth in your mind at the end, where it's basically you hit one button and you win.
Yeah.
So they have figured out a way to, once you get out of Midgar, to just warp to that point and it's over. You get credits. I want to say it's under 2 hours. I watched the whole thing and I was like, man, it's amazing how broken some of these games were back in the day. And just because there was no internet and there was no social media and people like data farming the stuff to figure out how broken it actually was. Like, because if that game came out today, it may not be as well liked today just because of people finding all this stuff that's broken. Or just any game like that, any of the older RPGs that they kind of cobbled together to get it out without patches and things like that.
Exactly. So, the patches.
I mean, I feel like the PC release of Final Fantasy VII is kind of an exception, because that game was like really just made for the PlayStation, and I don't even know why they bothered to do a PC release. But the PC release is the one that's super broken, and so I feel like if that game came out as is right now, people would have said, "Oh, the PC just has a really bad port. You should just play it on console."
Yeah, I agree with that, but at the
time,
right?
Yeah, the one of my, speaking of RPGs, they did a Wild Arms run, and the fun part about that was the broken thing was an item duper, where they were able to get, like, by figuring out some value, it like tricked the game if that you had -1 of an item, but they can't make -1, so they just give you 256 of them. So he was like getting because they have these apples that you can upgrade your stats with, and the guy was just duping those constantly and just getting like attack up to like 900 and magic up to 700, and they were like doing 999 damage early. That was a fun way to skip through that game. It kind of reminded me of, in a shorter sense, the way to quickly get through FF8 is to essentially, just bust the junction system and just make yourselves all-powerful gods very early on. I find the longer ones more relaxing for the RPGs when, like, there's I think it's either 6 or something where they have 100% run for it. It's like 9 hours or something like that. And that's kind of fun. I don't know about you guys. Have you guys seen any of the test stuff? Because I watched one recently where they're trying to speedrun Remake, and they got it down to like somewhere between like 10 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen Remake speedruns. I think maybe it's that I was watching a New Game Plus run, and that's a lot faster.
Yeah, that's
I
probably
didn't think
his
it was 10 hours.
Yeah, that was the. I might have been watching it early when the game first came out too, as well.
Yeah, I thought it was like 3 to 4.
Yeah, that sounds like a New Game Plus run. Yeah, because from what I remember from the one I watched, it was like being early on. The issue was, they slowly dole out the power in terms of the materia, so it takes you a little while to level up to the point where you can break it. But anyway, yeah, the
Any
great.
percent is in 5 hours and 50 minutes.
Okay, so they did
Oh,
get it
that
down.
is New Game Plus normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I literally watched it like a week or two after the game came out. The GDQ Twitch channel had somebody run. They were because during the pandemic, they were doing like test runs, and it was just spotlighting people testing out new speed runs for newer games. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if they still do that anymore. Like exclusively on the Twitch channel. This was back in like April, May when the shutdown first happened. Yeah, but so what do you guys have any? Because I know I have a couple. Do you have any favorite speedruns that you watched maybe more than once and are just amazed each time you watch it?
Well, I wanted to touch on something.
Go ahead.
Expand on something you said earlier first. You were saying that watching speedruns has gotten you into more retro games. And I wanted to mention this is another reason that I watch speedruns. If I'm thinking about playing a game, I will often look up a speedrun first to see what optimal play looks like in that game. For example, the example that sticks out the most to me is in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. This is the same kind of combat system and stuff as like Aria of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, whatever, Castlevania.
Mhm.
When you kill enemies, they have a chance to drop the spell that does like their attack. And so let's say in Ritual of the Night, the back of the box says hundreds of different spells for you to use. And when you watch the speedrun, they're like, yeah, so the fireball spell you start with by default is better than basically every other spell. So you should not don't even bother trying to get any others. Because you have to level up your spells as well in order for them to get more powerful. So you want to just use the fireball. Stuff like that gives you a better sense of like what it's going to be like to play the game than if you watch like a Let's Play where the person could be really bad at the game or give you a lot of commentary that includes spoilers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you just said speedruns that we watch multiple times. I already said that I watch a lot of Soulsborne streamers, Soulsborne speedrunners, and no-hit runners. The Dark Souls speedruns, well, Soulsborne means Dark Souls and Bloodborne, that whole series.
Yeah.
And also including Sekiro, but you can't really combine Sekiro into that name very well. Those are all really fun speedruns to watch because there are some skips that are weird, but for the most part, like, you have to fight all of the bosses. And that means that these, for the speedruns and stuff, they are fighting those bosses way under leveled. And so they just have to like be really good and really know that boss's attacks in order to do it like first try every time. Well, you're under geared and often missing a bunch of health. And those are, so it's fun to watch those every time just because the person has to be really good. And it's fun to watch somebody be really good at a thing.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. Like I said, I like watching Final Fantasy VII speedrunners just because of RPG runners in general, because there's so many different categories to these runs. Because you can get an any percent run, you can get 100% run, all bosses run. There's a lot of different things you can watch. It's not just you watch the same speed run every time. I like that there's a difference in each of these categories, so it makes it fun to watch. It makes it more interesting, especially if you've watched one. Especially if you watch an any percent run of a RPG, you know what you're watching. You've seen it done that way. It's always interesting when they find something new and they'll show you that to rewatch it. Then I don't like. Yeah. I haven't really sat and watched the same speed run more than once.
Yeah.
So I like mixing it up, watching different stuff.
Yeah. So the category of one that I love is anytime I see on the schedule that someone's doing a blindfolded run, I will make sure I watch that speed run because those are insane. And the one that I watched multiple times is just watching the guy beat Punch Out, Mike Tyson's Punch Out blindfolded.
Yeah.
I tell everybody to go watch that because it's that game. Yes, it has sound cues and things where you can do it, but yeah, it takes so much concentration because one mistake and he's done essentially because it changes the whole pattern of the boss fight. But the most interesting one I love, and I would recommend. There was a Mario RPG blindfold run this year, which was not Mario RPG, Mario 64. One this year. He only did 12 stars because obviously I don't know if that's all he's practiced, but it's still amazing. But I think it was either 2019 or 2018. They did a Mike Tyson's Punch Out speed run where it was two guys blindfolded and each doing one half of the controller.
That's just crazy to me.
and they go all the way through and beat Tyson, and it's just it's like Jonathon said, watching people be very good at a game is fun, and especially because these people are not arrogant about it at all.
No, usually they show zero emotion whatsoever when they're playing the game.
Which was my favorite thing of this year's was the Diablo 3 run where they break a world record and the equivalent reaction was like, yeah, look at that, we beat a world record. Like, like there was like no like scream like man look . Then they slowly realized they beat there was 3 people and that they beat the 4-person world record of the game as well. And the emotion didn't go above like a 6.
Another thing, I watched the beginning of that run. Now I know that I need to finish it because they actually beat the world record during the marathon. But it's 3 people playing Diablo 3, and they were like, yeah, so we do this because we just wanted to play Diablo with our friends. And we're like, hey, what if we just do it again? How quick can we do it? Yeah. Until they have the world record. And you're saying that they didn't seem like they cared that much about getting a world record because
they got excited, but it didn't go above a 6 or 7 on the excitement scale. I'm sure if they did it in person with the crowd, it would be a much more hype sort of reaction. But it was just funny. It was like you could tell because some of them have broken world records before, so maybe that's why they didn't get overly excited. But it was just fun to watch. It made me laugh that they had such a reaction that it went back to the announcer guy when I was watching live, and he's like, yeah, I didn't realize they broke the world record until somebody just told me in chat they did. But yeah, it's a pretty awesome run to watch. And what was the other one from this year that was pretty cool? There's a guy that 100%ed Super Mario Land 2, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
In under 3 hours, right?
In under 3 hours, yeah. It's real fun. He does the skip where you just ride Yoshi on the bottom of the screen. You got to be perfect with your timing to keep him from falling into the pit. But yeah, the whole thing with speed runs is just go to probably, unless if you guys have anything, probably the last thing I would say to this is just go to the Games Done Quick YouTube channel, go to the playlist. They have all the things there, and just read down and find a game you like, watch it, and then if you like that, go this looks interesting, and just kind of get in, or just let the playlist run while you're cleaning your house or something. And in the background, it's good white noise at times to just because if you don't run into very awkward streamers doing it during the marathon, it tends to be at least good background noise. I look forward to it every year to just see something different, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good this year for being an all at home.
And something I wanted to get into a little bit was all of the money that they raised when doing these Games Done Quick marathons. This year they raised over $2.75 million for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. And that's amazing. The fact Extra Life is one thing, but the Games Done Quick guys, man, it's amazing how much money they raise in such a short amount of time, just because of I guess it's I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's just people being enamored with the speed runs, and they have different goals and stuff that they set up for people to donate to.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I have a theory on this. As a guy that watched them grow through this over even since 2015, watching the first time they broke 1 million and stuff like that. It's just they've gotten really good at making the incentives and the prize packs and all that stuff sort of, integrated into the community and, worth it for people to want to put more than just a one-time $10 donation in. You could donate $5. Like they make some of the prize things like you have to donate up to $50. But it's a combined 50. So sometimes, and God bless people that have money like this, but you could end up just wanting to drop like $5 in all these extra categories, and before you know it, you've donated well over that 50, and probably does a lot better than most Extra Life in terms of getting people to pay money. And also they get some big donations from sponsors they have, like the t-shirt people will come in at the end of each day and donate the sales to bump up the numbers. Like the Yeti will come in with like 10 grand or something like that. And it's just fun how they've grown from, they were excited to get over like 500,000 or something, to now going to 2 million plus. It's just a testament to the people that actually run that event, that they've been able to tap in to something to keep the numbers going up, because it could very easily, people get tired of it, especially being at home. But the fact that they have been still they got 2 million, as you said, this year, I don't know. It's just something that I couldn't have predicted when I first started watching these live on Twitch, that they would get to this point.
I think I want to point out with that is that the GDQ streams get better every year.
Yeah.
Like you can see that they do a noticeably better job each time they do one of these. Specifically, we've been talking about how it's really good that they have the couch explain the run as it's going on, so that like you don't even need to have heard this game exists in order to understand what's going on and have a great time. That wasn't always true. If you look at some of their speedruns from like 2016 or earlier, they don't do that. The videos are not well edited, so the run will start like 30 minutes into the video, and then the couch will like make jokes or make comments or like, oh yeah, wow, I can't believe you got that skip. That's usually really hard to pull off or something like that. But they won't actually do the like step-by-step walkthrough of explaining like what this game is and how the speedrun works or any of the tricks or anything like that. And so it's just like not nearly as good to watch. But now it's so spot on. It's so fantastic. Like you said, look forward to it every time, just because they've done such a good job of improving these.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely got a lot better over the years, and I hope it continues growing. I mean, it's they raise so much money for charity, and I think it really also puts a spotlight on, like Mark said, it puts a spotlight on some retro games and games that people wouldn't think to talk about or speedrun or play. I think it does a lot of good for the retro game community as well as the speedrunning community, and I really enjoy that. I mean, obviously, this podcast is centered around retro gaming and the need to play old games that have been sitting on a shelf. So I feel like they kind of are in the same vein as what I want to do.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better with the retro game thing. Yeah, they've definitely, revitalized, at least my interest in some games that I haven't played in a while. And that was even before this podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, if you check out a game that you like on there and you think you want to see somebody else play it not so well, let us know. We might play it. But talking about retro games, we might as well get into our Retro Roulette game of the week. That is Final Fantasy X for the PlayStation 2. And we've already mentioned a good amount about the game. We all have some sort of background with it. I had the least amount because I've had only watched. I'd never had played it myself. I have now played it and have opinions, but we all do. So Final Fantasy X was the first Final Fantasy to release on the PlayStation 2. It was the first fully voice acted Final Fantasy. So they had a lot of things to conquer, I guess you could say, when they moved to the PlayStation 2, and when they moved to DVDs as opposed to CDs for their storage, because they had way more options of what they were going to do when it came down to full motion video, graphics, and sound and things like this. So it was kind of supposed to be the Final Fantasy VII moment for the PS2. So I feel like they kind of wanted to go there, but we can get into that as we go. Jonathan, have you beaten Final Fantasy X?
No. I had it as a kid when it came out, and I played it a lot, but I never beat it. But I listened to the soundtrack a huge amount. So that's most of my experience with this game comes from just listening to the soundtrack.
And I can totally understand that. Final Fantasy soundtracks are incredible. This one itself is very good too. I'm partial to 7, obviously, because it was my first one and I remember all the stuff so well. But 10 has a really, really good soundtrack so far, as I've played through about 6 to 7 hours.
Yeah. This game, as you said, I think maybe didn't have. It could have. It feels like you were right with the 10 was supposed to be the 7 moment for the PS2, and probably was for a generation of RPG fans. That this is the one they look fondly back on, not the older ones. I think that's what they attempted to do with 13, and that's a lukewarm hit or miss depending on who you talk to.
That's a story for another podcast.
Yeah. So it seems like each time they go into a new system, they try to, grab that attention of that, generation that's going to grow up with that one game. And, and because of how powerful these systems are becoming to make something new and exciting, it takes them longer to do it. So it's usually only one game a generation at this point. But my history with 10, real fast before we get into our thoughts for it, has been a joke on this podcast, is that I do own it. I own 4 copies of it. One of them I did not purchase. I have the original PS2 game. My sister was getting rid of all of her DVDs and stuff and games, and she had the Game of the Year edition of it. So I have that one for PS2, just in my collection. I don't think there's really a difference. But and then I have the remasters for the PS3 and PS4. What I like about in terms of why I keep going back to it is that it's an easy game to sort of just play for a while and put down and don't feel like you don't feel guilty or feel like you made a mistake with it. I think that's why I keep buying it. And also because I kind of am hoping my youngest niece becomes an RPG fan and I can show it to her. We're almost there. We're getting pretty close.
Have you gotten her started on Pokemon? That's how you get the kids hooked.
Yeah, that was my, that's my next thing. The games she's choosing for Roblox are all RPG based, and I'm like, all right, we're almost there.
Closer and closer.
We're getting there. She's 9, so the first hurdle was reading. She had to know how to read. I'm like, okay, we skipped that. But yeah, so that's my history with the game. I probably played it a lot more than it sounds like both of you, so I could go last on my thoughts on it because I would like to hear a first time playing through its thoughts.
Okay. So this is my first playthrough of the game, and I had no idea what to expect. I'd heard from people that this was their favorite Final Fantasy, and as I started playing through it, I'm going, why do people not that I didn't like it, but like what grabbed people so much with this game versus like 13? Because the one of the biggest complaints about 13 is that it's not open world and it's not, it's very linear. Final Fantasy X is very linear, and I don't see a problem with it. I know like the story is a totally different thing, but
No, I had thoughts on that specific statement, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because you mentioned it on the stream. That like when you look at the mini map for Final Fantasy X, it looks like exactly the same as the mini map in Final Fantasy 13.
Mhm.
But I think the main difference is that they hide it better. In Final Fantasy X, you wake up in those ruins and there's all this rubble around. And when you're the actual map where you can move around is like a corridor with 2 rooms on the sides. But when you're looking at the screen, it looks like you're navigating through rubble and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense that I can't go many places here because a lot of it is collapsed. The rooms are collapsed and whatever. Whereas with Final Fantasy 13, they're like, all right, now you're on the map, and it's just literally a hallway with nothing in it, nowhere for you to go. You have no option except literally to walk forward. And at that point, it's like, why are you making me do this? You're just wasting my time making me walk.
Yeah, I understand that because the setting, of course, of Final Fantasy 13 is way different than 10. You're in a city and they let you go down one street and that's it, and then they let you go down another street and that's it. So yeah, I understand why it may Final Fantasy 10 I feel like has a way better what's the word I'm looking for? Like the backgrounds, the areas are nicer. I feel like they're more intricate. But yeah, they don't really tell you a whole lot in the beginning of Final Fantasy X. They just kind of throw you into, you've been thrown back 10,000 years. And I thought that was an interesting idea, or forward 10,000 years. I thought that was an interesting story element. It's also interesting that the character you meet, Yuna, knows your father. He was thrown forward 10,000 years. It's like, why is this happening more than once? Which, of course, I didn't get to yet. So who knows what will happen then when I get to that part of the story. But it's just an interesting story beat that they go with for that. That one of the other main characters knows your father who disappeared from your world. Blitzball. I got to talk about Blitzball. So the first time I tried Blitzball, which was yesterday, I had no idea what I was doing. My main problem with Blitzball in the game is that they show you how to play and do all this stuff, and then they immediately send you to do something else. Like, why do you not play Blitzball right after they do the whole tutorial on how to play Blitzball? Like, they show you this whole tutorial, they tell you what to do, all the buttons, and then they send you off to do some BS mission that doesn't mean anything. Well, at least to me right now, it doesn't mean anything in my playthrough. But like, what was the whole point of that? Like, why would you not just show me all of that stuff and then let me play immediately so I don't forget the buttons and how it works and everything else?
Yeah. I agree with you with that. So
that kind of annoyed me. I was like, what was that all about?
But yeah, they expect you to play that whole sequence all the way through. Which it sounds like you haven't finished yet, so you'll see why.
Why they send you on that mission?
Yeah.
So
that part of it you'll get, but I agree with you that they should have done the tutorial right before you play the match, not before when they do.
And then I was just, because I went to bed last night and I was like, why? Who gives a shit about Blitzball? This was so stupid, and the way you control it just seemed so backwards, and like because in the tutorial, they're like, yeah, just let the computer do it. They'll handle it. So I thought, oh, it's going to be a super easy match and I'll be able to win it no problem. Wrong. Like all of the stats and stuff just seems so convoluted because they don't make a lot of sense if you haven't played more than like a minute of Blitzball. And I'm glad that go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say I think the most of the takes that you've probably seen on Blitzball may not be very I was going to say not serious, but it's just people remember it because of how ridiculous it is. Just the concept of the game is why they remember it. There's probably a group that absolutely love it. I do like the one trick. Now it's not really spoiling anything for you, where you can play it at the save points after this. Obviously. But there's the one part that's broken that everybody uses or tries to use to beat where you're at. But the way they make it, make you actually play the game is the side thing is to get extra items and get, I think, one of Waka's limits. You have to like actually try and score goals, stuff like that, and not just, score one and then hide, and then run the clock out. So it gets more interesting as it goes along, but I can completely see people bouncing off and not wanting to play it. I just did it because stupid.
I was so annoyed by it that I had to look up. Like, I was like, I got to be missing something. So I looked up,
they don't explain it well. So
I looked up like strategies on how to play Blitzball, and when they showed you what to do, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, there's got to be an easy way to like beat the AI because it's PS2 AI. How could it be so good? It wasn't. So yeah, once I figured out what I actually had to do, it was very simple, and I was able to beat the computer, even though they also put you at a big disadvantage because your team is terrible.
Yep.
So they just expect you to. Well, the other thing is, so my biggest complaint is that in the tutorial they're like, oh, unless you really know what you're doing, don't turn on manual control. And I was like, okay. I did, because I didn't know what I was doing. So like, I didn't turn on manual control at all. I just let the computer do its thing. And like, I put me in a terrible spot, and like I lost the game like 6-0. Like I didn't even come close to scoring a goal. And I was like, well, how, for any kid, like I'm sure it doesn't matter if you win that game in the long run in the story, but just the fact that like any kid playing the game that like had no idea what they were doing and were just like, oh, I'm just gonna follow the instructions that they give me, and you just like literally can't win if you follow the instructions that they give you. It's got to be very disheartening, because especially if you're not an avid player and save before every freaking thing like I do. Like, thank God I did, because I was able to then go back and play it again and win. So
yeah. The fun thing is that you'll find this out later on, because I'm assuming you will keep playing a little bit, is that Blitzball becomes a game where you can recruit people and stuff like that, to make your team better. And, you play games and you play in tournaments and things like that. Not actually, it has nothing to do with the story. You have to do this all at a save point. So that's probably where more people get very into it, is that aspect. You like sign people to contracts and things. It's a lot deeper than it looks right now.
It's its own mini game.
Yeah. But but I absolutely agree with everything, all of your criticisms for that. I will never defend how they introduce Blitzball to you. And I don't think it's a very good mini game. But it was just stupid and fun to play when, I was however old, in high school, when this came out. To just waste a couple hours trying to get really good at Blitzball. But what do you think of the battle system? I know you have opinions on battle systems a lot.
So I really like the battle system. I can see how like 13 kind of built on it, but I like the fact that you can switch in and out characters whenever you want.
Yeah.
It, especially when you have things like you all of a sudden you come up against all flying characters, and you have like 3 melee characters. You can switch them out for your black mage and your ranged fighter. I like that they give you that option, because that's something that typical older RPGs we've come to find out, like through Suikoden and Final Fantasy VI and stuff like that. You're kind of stuck with what you got until you go back to a base and then switch everybody out. And if you don't have the right setup, you're kind of screwed. So I like that this gives you that option, and it's a lot more flexible. I imagine there will be a point where you lose the option to use certain characters and things, and you gain more. But right now, I really enjoy it. And of course, the sphere grid also, as you play RPGs today, even like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they're basically using the same thing, the sphere grid, with when you upgrade weapons in Final Fantasy VII Remake. So they kind of stuck with that formula, and I think it works. I haven't gotten far enough into the sphere grid to understand the intricacies of all of the surrounding stuff. Like I'm just in the middle still at this point, so I'm sure it gets more intense and more things to choose from as you go on.
Yeah. The battle system. I pointed out my favorite part in the stream is that it's one of the first ones that I knew of, and maybe there were others, but it's one of the first ones I remembered. It showed you the turn order, and in there, and then it also, what I liked is that it shows you how different things affect the turn order. Like if you hit someone with a slow spell, or if you haste someone, how it affects where people go in order, so you can strategize a little bit better, which comes into play with some bosses if you get that far into the game, where you have to make sure certain people go before certain people. The game overall, in terms of the battle system, is one of the reasons why it's probably top 3, at least top 5 of the Final Fantasies for me. Just because it's a game that story is good and the battle system's good, as we talked about, and it doesn't take much. You could get people into this game that weren't around or into games when it came out. I don't know if do you have anything else? Because I don't want to cut you.
No, I'm also interested to hear more of what Jonathan has to say about battle system, etc.
Okay, I'm happy to start talking.
Sure, go for it.
So, like I said, I didn't beat this game as a kid, but I listened to the soundtrack a lot. So even though I didn't beat it, I think I only got to like the Thunder Plane. Well, yeah, that's what happened. I got to the Thunder Plains, and then my disc got scratched.
Oh,
and so that was the end of it. But I still remember all the characters and stuff, and am generally fond of them. So one thing that I guess I need to explain first is that I really hate cutscenes in games lately. I don't like watching things. So
I understand.
Yeah, so specific example, I tried to replay Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order recently, because the combat is interesting in that. It's like an easier version of Sekiro. It's fun to run around as a Jedi. The thing is, you can't skip the cutscenes, and so there's a tutorial area, which is fine, but there's like 10 to 15 minutes of cutscenes in the tutorial area that you can't skip. They're kind of cool the first time, but when you are replaying the game, you start playing and you're like, all right, yeah, I got to remember like what abilities I don't have right now, and then and I guess I'll just sit here and like go make a sandwich or something while this plays out, because I do not care. So the reason I mention that is what I much prefer is when they have dialogue on screen that you can read, because then you can button through the dialogue, and 1, I'm clicking a button, so I feel more engaged in it, and 2, I read faster than people talk. So you go through it quicker and at the rate that you want to. But I was surprised that I did like the cutscenes in Final Fantasy X when I was watching you guys play. I think the thing is that this feels this doesn't seem like a good assessment, but like I think it's because they're good. I know that's not very descriptive, but just like the cutscenes aren't any individual cutscene didn't seem that long, and it seems like they're showing you a specific thing to set up a specific part of a character, like the Blitzball cutscene in the beginning with Tidus. I think that's only like a minute or so long, right?
Yeah.
They're not very long.
Yeah, and it shows you, look, this sport is cool. You wouldn't know that by playing it when you get to play Blitzball, but it looks cool, doesn't it? Doesn't it seem neat in concept? And also establishing Tidus as like this athlete, surfer guy, whatever. Then also that the battles that are the mandatory battles also kind of look like cutscenes. Like when you got to the fight against the Sin Spawn, that's what they're called, right? The scales or whatever. When you think about like what you're actually doing in that fight, you're literally just hitting A repeatedly to just attack, because you don't have any other options. You don't have anything else to do. But that fight feels cool because your characters are surrounded, and at least at that point, I had not played any JRPGs where it was not your people in a line against the enemies who are all in a line. And so there was absolutely no like surrounding people. And then also the characters are talking through that battle. So it feels better. It looks. This is another thing. My main thought on the battle system is just that it looks cool when the people attack. And that's not really true of a lot of JRPGs. Like when you guys were playing Suikoden, I enjoyed that game quite a bit. But when you're attacking, your character simply moves forward and then like swings their arm and then they move back, right?
Yeah.
And but in this, it's like there's significant animation to the way that they attack, and like your weapons look cool and stuff. And the characters have like idle animations that seem natural, not like they're just standing in place on repeat as much.
Yeah. I also like that, you know, the weapons, when you change them, they look a lot better. Like in some games, like they don't really change a whole lot, but I like how much detail they put into that type of thing, especially with Lulu, because she has like a little doll or whatever it is.
Right. Sorry, I have a cat climbing through my microphone right now. Okay. On this same train of thought, I really like that the set piece battles, like the that fight with the octopus in the shipwreck, like that fight is really cool. Again, there's not that much like actually to it, like gameplay wise. However, getting to move your characters around as the enemy is moving around, and then like the background for the battle changes when you move. That's pretty neat.
The visuals of this game are incredible. I didn't really go into that, but for it being an early PS2 title and running at 480i, it has a ton of detail, way more than you would expect from a PlayStation.
This game just seems like they were able to hit on something, as Jonathan, I was listening as he was pointing out, they got a lot of the little things right in terms, you know, the idle animations. Each character attacks differently and looks different, so you can tell who's who. I think that's one of our problems in Suikoden. So, you know, it sort of gives this personality off just by a little idle animation. I think they write the characters well enough that you can tell them apart. It's not like generic Sword Guy 1 and generic Sword Guy 2. They each, even as annoying as Titus can be at times, you know, he actually sounds different than when you run it when you see Aaron. And then, you know, they do a good job of having a couple of the different races in the game, you know, you run into, and just having them be different enough that you can tell them apart. This game, what I really like about Final Fantasy X is that it's an easy game to sort of explain to someone going in what to expect without needing to go, well, just ignore this part. That's weird, but doesn't matter, you know, because I think that's why I love the linearness of the story. You can, as in most Final Fantasies, you can backtrack later. You know, is that it's a good endpoint for new players to RPGs, that it just keeps going forward. You don't have to sort of remember what someone said to remember what town to go to, which is why we pull up the guide in Suikoden. You know, you don't have to remember, was it southeast or southwest? What did they say? And the elimination of the world map in that sense, I think, makes this a much easier endpoint for people. And I will say, maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not, but I think this system might be, of the Final Fantasies, might be the best implementation of the turn-based system, in terms of having the turn list, having all the options you have, allowing you to, at least when you play the international version, which is the last two playthroughs I've done, you can essentially make any character any job. Not like the PS2 version where they lock you into this is that. It sort of gives you a nice customization and, you know, makes it makes it a lot more forgiving if you don't really understand the stats and all going forward than most of those turn-based RPGs do.
Yeah, I think it shows when they basically reused the battle system for Octopath Traveler. So I think it definitely lends itself to how good it is. All right. I think we've talked it to death.
It's definitely, to be honest, it's definitely, if we ever do an LP, it's a good LP candidate for the YouTube channel.
For sure. It's definitely a good game to play with people. With people watching. Do we have scores? Mark, what would you give this lovely Final Fantasy?
Yeah, so for things that you'll find out later, and I won't really mention, I give it 4.5 out of 5. It's one of the best. Like I said, it's probably my third favorite Final Fantasy. It usually goes. And as I say this, I realize I did not do this on purpose, but 1 and 2 are Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 9. So I did not do that on purpose with those two numbers. To be up there.
Sure, Mark.
But yeah, I always rank games that are 4+ for me are games that I go back to and happily replay a lot. And this one, I bought it 3 times and I've played it on each one of those systems. Not all the way through. There tends to be a point that, unless if I'm focusing on beating it, the length of it makes me stop at certain points. The Thunder Plains is usually one of them. You'll find out when you get there, Tom. But or I just stop when they get the calm, and at the 2/3 mark of the game, roughly.
Wait, there's a calm in this game too?
No, I think no, that's the time period. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You'll find that all out. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's okay.
It has a different name. It's not that. It's essentially where, if you've ever seen people talk about or anything, there's like this chocobo mini game that occurs there.
Okay.
So that's usually the point I stop, because that's usually the point where you can start going for people's ultimate weapons and things like that.
Gotcha. So it's like end game kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's around end game.
You mean when it stops being linear?
Yeah, exactly. That's literally the end of the linear, is that place. So definitely I recommend anybody that plays RPGs, whether they've played a Final Fantasy before, this is probably the easiest one to get in. If you want to check out what the old school turn-based RPGs are, you'll have a lot more fun, I would say, playing this than trying to figure out a 7 or an 8, or even the SNES ones. You can probably jump from this one to those once you learn turn-based stuff. But yeah, that's my thought. I really like this.
Jonathan, do you have a score you'd like to give?
Yeah, I think I'd probably say 4 out of 5. Like Mark was just saying, I think this, if I were to recommend somebody a Final Fantasy game to start with, I think I might start with this one, because it is, the linearity makes it like more accessible. You don't have to worry about keeping a physical journal of where of what people say and where you're supposed to go next and stuff like that, like you do with Final Fantasy VII and other stuff like that. And the combat system is relatively simple, but it's also got enough going on with it that you can see why turn-based combat is interesting. And then the story is good. Yeah.
No, yeah, I you know what? I literally agree with 100% of that. I'm also going to give it a 4. This definitely seems like the beginner's Final Fantasy. If you wanted to jump in somewhere, granted, none of them really run into each other. Like there's no story different. Like none of them actually have anything to do with each other. But if you wanted to start, or do they? We didn't talk about that, but that's a whole nother podcast also. 10 is a good place to start for sure. It's not super open world, so you can't get lost and things like that. So I think to someone wanting to try out the Final Fantasy series, I think this is a good place to start. And on that note, what are we going to play next week? Let's spin the wheel. All right. We're going back in time again. we're playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Genesis.
Oh, sorry. At first I thought you meant Sonic Adventure 2, which
No.
I seem to remember none of you have played before. And
No.
that game is very interesting. But you mean Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is the one Genesis game that I have here, and I hate it. Because you play Green Hill Zone and you're like, oh man, this is so good. I love how you get to move fast. And there's also like some jumps that are tricky to make and whatever. And if you do it, then you skip a lot of stuff, get rings, whatever. It's great. Then you get to Chemical Zone. They're like, you try to go fast and and you just slide off and die. And it's terrible.
I think I want to say that was our main complaint with the first Sonic the Hedgehog, but
that's the complaint with all Sonic the Hedgehog.
Right.
Is that the first zone is all the going fast and all that, except 3. 3 I think has some moments that slow you down in the first level, but it's like, oh, this is gotta go fast. I get this, and then you get to, I think it's Marble Zone in the first one, and then 2 has, I forget the second zone, and both of them like grind the game to a halt.
Yeah, well, but this is supposed to be like the best Sonic game, supposedly.
I know a lot of people like it.
Yeah.
It's like if normally when you ask someone what their favorite Sonic game is, it's either this or CD. So we'll see how it goes. I'll be playing this game on stream. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, tonight around 9 p.m. on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GameVaultPod. Well, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Mark, do you want to go through all of our other stuff that's happening that's not Game Vault related?
Yeah, I'll run through all that. We are D&D podcast. We should be coming back soon-ish. I'm assuming that either this week, when you're listening to this episode, or the week after is going to be me breaking down sort of the introduction to the world that you guys are in. And then after that, we're going to do character episodes, just essentially because since we're going to be streaming Stranger Damies, we have a little background stuff that we have to get done before we can actually start the campaign that have nothing to do with characters are made, world's done. It's just doing a lot of the aesthetic stuff for the streaming that we have to do and get that all set so that you guys have a good visual experience if you want to watch us for 3 consecutive hours play the game instead of listen to the podcast. So when that does come in podcast form, it comes out every Wednesday. You can searching for Stranger Damies. It's Instagram and Twitter at Stranger Damies. And then it'll be streamed on twitch.tv/GameVaultPod. We thought with our subscribers and subscription base there, it's a good place to put it on than the main Damie channel, which has hosted previous live stream sessions. So be on the lookout for that. We have They Call This a Movie, airs every Thursday. You can search for it, They Call This a Movie, Instagram and Twitter at The Main Damie. TheMainDamie.com is our website that has all of our writing, and all the podcasts live there and stuff like that. So it's a good home base if you're doing it from a browser and not through a podcast app to keep track of us there. And then we have our stream schedule. We'll be streaming, as Tom said, the Retro Roulette game this evening. And then Wednesday is Warzone Wednesday. Thursday is Trails in the Sky, Trails Thursday. And then I guess it would be Friday Fright Fest. And then it would be Saturday the next week. We alternate it depending on the days we record this podcast. And Sundays is Slasher Sundays, or basically whatever Dan wants to play on Sunday, essentially, is what that is. And also, if you like our stuff or you really like Dead by Daylight, you can also follow Jen over at Roxy Foxy. It's ROX_FOXII. And she streams on days that we don't stream, or just randomly during the day on the weekends. And she plays Dead by Daylight and Phasmophobia over there. So if you like that content more than the other stuff we do, there's more of it to get over at her channel.
Because you didn't want to let her take over the entire GVP stream with Dead by Daylight.
She can do whatever she wants. She's the stream queen on
yes.
on this stuff, so she can stream it wherever she likes. And So yeah, we got lots of stuff coming up. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm crossing my fingers, but I'm not making any promises that we'll be putting up YouTube videos on our YouTube channel that are not just VODs. So be on the lookout for that. I want to mention that we are an affiliate of Stone Age Gamer. They have all kinds of retro game accessories, controllers, flash carts, pretty much anything you can think of that you might need for your retro setup. They have it. And if you use our link that's in the description, we get a little bit of kickback every time you use it and buy something. And it will help our channel grow and this podcast grow and all of that good stuff. Jonathan, is there anything you need to plug or would like to plug before we get out of here?
Nope, I don't want people to find me.
Okay, fair enough. So if you haven't already, go watch some AGDQ. And for Mark and Jonathan, I am Tom, and we will catch you guys in the next one.